and create a charge on you. If they say you got to do something, etc. They're supposed to give you these instruments when they transact business with you. Are we clear?
Mm-hmm.
You know why?
No. Yes.
Why?
Recruitment.
Huh?
There's no money. So when there's no money, they demand the money from you. They have to refund you whatever you give them instead of the money. But all you're giving them is credit.
You're always giving them your credit.
Right.
Yeah, it's on.
They're paying them to do something.
It also has to do with the fact that they are being overseen.
Here, hold on. Where's that little mic?
I didn't have a battery.
I'll speak up.
Yeah, speak up.
What it has also has to do with the fact that their bankruptcy is being overseen, and the IRS are the bookkeepers of the bankruptcy,
Right.
of the defunct, bankrupt United States corporation.
All right, now stop.
Yes, sir.
Are we clear?
Yes.
Now, write this down if you got pens and papers. Because this is important for you to understand this concept. So that you can come at them every time they ask you for anything. Whenever they're asking you for anything, so-called fining you or going to fine you, or they say you owe a mortgage payment, or they say that you got a court case, or if you've been to jail or anything like that, whatever the instrument they created, a bond, whatever instrument they created, a bond goes with it. Whatever instrument they created, a bond goes with it. Are we clear?
Yes.
And it goes on the stock market. That's whether things are litigated or not. And this is what goes with those bonds. With all transactions. All transactions carry this with it. They don't tell people because they don't want you to ask for it.
Now 1099, that's for independent worker.
All right, so now, what does a 1099 OID stand for?
Original issue discount.
Say it again?
Original issue discount.
Say it.
Original issue discount.
What does INT stand for?
I'm not sure.
Huh?
I'm not sure.
Interest. Interest. Now, so
She was
whenever
right.
you
She was right about
transact,
the OID. She was right about the OID original, which
yeah, yeah.
interest discount.
Now, the reason you asked for this because we want to look beyond just the issue that there's no money. Don't look at it like that exactly. In other words, that does not justify them. Do you understand? It's almost like, in a way, we're telling the truth, but in a way, that's not how you want to look at it.
Okay.
Because at all times, keep in mind that the Europeans are occupying a land that is not theirs, and all the resources belong to the people of the land, never did belong to them.
Okay.
Are we clear?
Yeah.
But keep also in mind that they came here to steal our gold and silver. And the reality is their relationship with us, if there's any transfer between us and them, should be done by voucher.
Wow. Okay.
Because it's our estate. They're just like by default controlling it. Are we clear?
Yes.
In order to avoid their obligation in accord with international law, they misclassified our people and branded our people Negro, black, and colored to take us outside the human family, also to make us not descendable. And then so the states, corporations have been cribbing, or what you call doing probate on all of our estate in order to continue to steal from us. This is why the U.S. corporation created what is called a joint stock trust. So they could trick it up and be both the beneficiary and the trustee.
Wow.
To deny us our birthright.
There you go.
Are we clear? Now keep in mind, their corruption went so deep that they bankrupted their order, their corporate entity. And they've been on a tear, or they've been systematically trying to convert the false debt that they created on us. Are we clear?
Yes, yes.
Clear.
This is also why they created the 14th Amendment which created the corpse, or the dead man, or what they refer to as the straw man, as an imitator for us, and then list us as the straw, and then deny us right of claim, and then claim themselves to be the keepers of the straw.
I want to go off topic. I just wanted to add something. That in our Black's Law Dictionary, look up the word dummy. The word dummy. You ought to look that up. You know, not nail it down, but vaguely it means a person who represents a straw man. That's a dummy. That's just telling you how they perceive it.
Yes, and so that's how they're approaching us, that's how they're dealing with us. Are we clear?
Yes.
Now, so look at it from really kind of what's happening. Now keep in mind, just like J.P. Morgan said, if it's not gold and silver coin, it's not money. So their bookkeeping with the Federal Reserve is for making transfers or entries into our trust. Are we clear?
Yes.
They've created multiple instruments to signify our trust, i.e. like the Social Security, marriage certificate, birth certificate, all those instruments, etc. Keep in mind they have different names, but they're all the same instrument.
Wow.
Just like you have the different names of the banks,
Yes.
but they're all one bank.
Right.
This is why things can't be fixed. Are we clear?
Wow, one thing,
Yes, they're one bank.
World Bank.
So if you're dealing with Chase Manhattan, and then you're dealing with Citibank, J.P. Morgan, you're dealing with one bank because all of the directors on all the boards are the same people. They just gave these outlets different names to deceive the public. Are we clear?
Yes.
Now, the reason I say look at it a little differently from the concept that they don't have money, look at it from this perspective. They're dealing with a state. They're dealing with real estate. This is why they're dealing with real property and occupied land. And so what they've done is created a lot of what you call layers to disguise the mystery, or to create the mystery of money. So let's look at the mystery of money. So the mystery of money is the counterfeit of the multiple layers of what they call negotiable instruments. And negotiable instruments are simply inputs and outputs and movements of our resources and our estate, period. They weren't dealing with money. Are we clear?
Yes.
Even when, from a truthful perspective, the last silver coins were plugged in like 64. But technically, they were still only dealing with movements on our estate. Are we clear? And if you think estate, your concepts will be right, because if you're talking money, you're kind of removing yourself away from what is the real issue. Because the real issue is this land and the resources in the land, above and beneath the land. Are we clear? Which includes the silver and the gold that's still unrefined. You see? So, with their corruption, they bankrupted their institution, which is styled the United States corporation company. And that must be distinguished from the land. Now, specifically, being more specific, they in 1933, and this is why once in a while we have to read this to remind people so that their concept will be right, not only with this, but what this is about. And also this gives you a concept on how you respond to them whenever they're making any claims with you, or they're writing to you telling you got to do this and do this, or do the other, or we're going to find you, we're going to take your sleep some time together and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Keep this in mind, because this will give you a concept of your protocols. Are we clear?
Yes.
It doesn't matter what the issue is. because they're all really the same. Our concepts. See, this is how we got to look at it. Whenever they come at you, demand anything, look at it, the issue is the same.
Yeah.
If they call a driver's license, mortgage, water tax, gas and electric, anything concerning the resources, the lands, or any rights, still all the same. They just give them different names. Look at one principle, tax, T-A-X. Are we clear?
Yes.
They create different instruments so that you don't look at the actuality of the burden. You know, like if they robbing you 99% of what what you earn, and if they say 98% tax, you'll be up in arms. So they split it up in driver's license, marriage license, car registration, insurance. You understand? But they make them all mandatory while saying that they're not mandatory, or that they're voluntary. Are we clear? But they're all Roman taxes, and they're under the rock tree. And the rock tree, or the monster tree, is the dead tree, and the Spanish Inquisition is its root. Treaty of Verona, Secret Treaty of Verona is its trunk, and its branches include the Negro Act, Christian Black Codes of 1724, the Buck Act, Trading with the Enemy Act, etc., etc., go on and on and on. Executive Order 11490, also with the War Act 100, I think it's Executive Order 100, something like that. So let's read James Traficant's bankruptcy speech, because we were doing it the week before when we were here, past week. And we were getting into it, and we didn't get to a point of satisfying all the questions that was here, because it started getting deep as we were closing out. Because the concepts must be right in order for you to comprehend why we do certain things, why we say certain things, certain processes that you will begin to do, or as many of you have done, and on the other hand, we want to bring others up to snuff so that they can do. The bankruptcy of the United States Congressional Record, March the 17th, 1993, volume 33, page H-1303. Speaker Representative James Traficant Jr. of Ohio, addressing the House of Representatives. Mr. Speaker, we are now here in Chapter 11, and members of Congress are official trustees presiding over the greatest reorganization of any bankrupt entity in world history, the U.S. government. We are setting forth, hopefully, a blueprint for our future. And there are some who say it is a coroner's report that will lead to our demise. It is an established fact that the United States federal government has been dissolved by the Emergency Banking Act, March the 9th, 1933, 48 Statute 1 Public Law, 89-719, declared by President Roosevelt being bankrupt and insolvent, House Joint Resolution 192, 73rd Congress in session, June the 5th, 1933, joint resolution to suspend the gold standard and abrogate the gold clause, dissolved the sovereign authority of the United States and the official capacities of the United States governmental officers, and departments, and is further evidence that the United States federal government exists today in name only. The receivers of the United States bankruptcy are the international bankers via the United Nations, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund. All United States officers, officials, and departments are now operating within a de facto status only under emergency war powers, with the constitutional Republican form of government now dissolved. The receivers of the bankruptcy have adopted a new form of government for the United States. This new form of government is known as a democracy. So now you see the democracy that they've been talking about came about 1933 after the gold. Well, not yet. After the gold act was the gold standard was abrogated. So you must be cognizant of that so that you will understand that the institutions that you've been dealing with under the democracy order are all frauds. Are we clear?
Yes.
And so a lot of times when we say that, a lot of Europeans, Klan members like Flowers and other guys like that, Knights, Templars, etc., misrepresent the Moors, saying that we're anti-government. We're anti-fraud government.
Wow.
We're for the Republic. We're not for the democracy fraud that was introduced by those who subverted the government. So the government, as you can see, the government was actually overthrown from within, and most people don't even know the government was overthrown.
Wow.
You see? And so conceptually, people have gone on about their business without thinking that they're dealing with an imposter government. You know, even though the information's in the record, people read this stuff and don't think. You see, they're not thinking in their mind, you know, Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution guarantees a Republican form of government only. So if any of the corporate states and their officers step outside of that, they're acting in a state of treason.
Wow.
Now do you understand why everybody's broke?
Yes. Yes.
Now I want to read further, and I want us to pay attention to some things, all right? So that we can also, again, understand some arguments, including some of the writs that we put out, so that your comprehension on the thought that's behind them, all right? So I'm going to start again with paragraphs 3, then I'm going to read a couple more pages, and we'll dissertate a little bit and read it through, but basically, I'm going to read the primal parts, and then we'll go over them. So the receivers of the United States bankruptcy are the international bankers via the United Nations, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund. So you must know that the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, which is the IMF, are really one order. They've been split. Are we clear?
Clear.
But they split them in order to hide their corruption. This is so that the U.S. corporation could control the seats for the application of the president of the World Bank, you understand? And then Britain could control the IMF, but they're actually one order. Are we clear? So you've got to know this so you can understand the shenanigans that's going on, all right? So the receivers of the bankruptcy have adopted a new form of government for the United States. And this new form of government is known as a democracy, being an established socialist communist order under a new governor for America. And this act was instituted and established by transferring and or placing the office of the Secretary of Treasury to that of the Governor of the International Monetary Fund. Public Law 94-564, page 8, section HR 13955 reads in part, the U.S. Secretary of Treasury receives no compensation for representing the United States. And the reason why is because the IRS is now the Treasury. And that's really the Inquisition Revenue Services under the Spanish Inquisition, and it's just now called the Internal Revenue Services, but it's really the Inquisition Revenue Services. So you have to know what things are to know why we say certain things that we're saying. Gold and silver were such a powerful money during the founding of the United States of America that the founding fathers declared that only gold or silver coins can be money in America. And since gold and silver coinage were heavy and inconvenient for a lot of transactions, they were stored in banks, and claim checks was issued as a money substitute. So the greenbacks that what you call gold certificates and silver certificates are really claim checks. They're not money. We're talking about the ones that demand the gold and silver. Now remember, they removed them too and then gave you Federal Reserve notes on top of them, which is 3 times removed from the actual source. And the people who think they have money, and even the first legitimate certificates, is still not the money. They were the checks to get the money. Are we clear?
Clear.
And see, so after a few generations, when people lose concepts of what's going on, they started falling into the belief systems of having money. They don't have money. They're not allowed to have money. They're in a slave system. Are we clear? So we want to get in the habit of not calling things what they are not. Because you have to be competent in order to make law arguments. Are we clear? That's a lot of times when we're talking and we correct people, it's not because we're not hearing them, and it's not because we don't know where they're coming from. It's because their concepts must be clear, because we're preparing you to reclaim your lost estate. Are we clear?
Yes. Yes.
And so again, you must know fundamental rules of what bankrupt entities can and cannot do in law. And what bankrupt entities cannot do in law is charge or claim, demand finances or credits from anybody because they don't have any to give. Do you understand? Bankrupt entities are closed. It's like if anybody's been in Camden in these last few years and come down Admiral Wilson Boulevard off the Ben Franklin Bridge, and when you see the old Sears building that they just tore down recently, that's been there for years empty, you know, you wouldn't go in there shopping because it's closed, which means it's out of business. Well, it's the same thing with U.S. corporations. Are we clear? They've been continuing doing business by virtue of maintaining an army with what they robbed from the people, and have been forcing the world and governments to accept the Federal Reserve notes. And this is why you have all the multiplicity of wars, because they would murder anybody who would not accept them.
That's right.
This is what they've been doing. Are we clear?
Clear.
So we have to be clear in our heads of what you're really dealing with, distinguished from the distractions that we have of trying to survive. Are we clear? So we're not talking money, we're talking about an occupying government who are really disguised as the legitimate government, who are really deputy knights for the popes of Rome.
Exactly.
And the IRS is the bookkeepers for them. Are we clear?
Clear.
They're all one unit. You talk about the Vatican, the Jesuit order, Britain, and the U.S. are a trinity. They're one order. The U.S. corporation is a British colony, distinguished from the land. We need to get it clear in our head that just because they're occupying the land, the United States is not the land. The land is Morocco. Are we clear?
Clear.
This is why you have to get it clear in your head when you see those two seals on the note, why the Great Seal is silent, meaning that the heirs to the seal are silent because they don't know it's their seal. Are we clear? And then this is also why the Europeans can't speak under that seal, because they're not the sovereign.
Right.
Are we clear?
Clear.
Now you understand why Illuminati uses your seal, because they're controlling you for the popes of Rome.
Yes.
It's not their seal, it's your seal. And it don't mean the devil either, so don't even go there. That's the insignia of the Moorish nation that was overthrown by the popes of Rome. And the operations of them maintaining their political agendas are via the doctrine of discovery. So write that down. This goes on that tree, on that monster tree. Look at it as a branch up on the monster tree. Because you've got to comprehend the cards that are being played so that your concepts will be right as things begin to fall apart, that you have a right of claim. Because logically, if you don't have a concept of what's going on, you're going to be making arguments that are not germane to what's really going on. Are we clear? All of the instruments that they have are then transferred in what they call T-bonds, treasury bonds. But that treasury really is the bookkeeping bonds of the Inquisition Revenue Services, the IRS, which is really a branch of the Federal Reserve, which belongs to the popes of Rome. Are we clear? So don't look at them, any of those institutions, as legitimate government. They're private religious corporations belonging to the popes of Rome, and they're all linked together. They weren't created and then decided to partner up. They were created in sequence as one entity, given different names to disguise what they are to the general public. And so just like when people start dealing with issues, they say, well, which bank you're dealing with? Well, I'm dealing with Citibank. No, you're dealing with JP Morgan. And you're dealing with Bank of America. Because they're all one bank with different names to fool you. All of their board directors are the same people. Are we clear? And bank and bench, the court's bench and the banks mean the same thing. This is why when people walk before those magi, it's an auction block. Do you understand?
It is.
And he's auctioning people. So this is why when they create what they call a charge, whenever they create what they call a charge or they charge somebody with anything, what they're saying they bonded or they put a lien on you and claimed a debt. Now, when they make that charge, it goes on the stock market within 72 hours. And it is called a bid bond. Are we clear?
Yes.
Write that down. Now, when they create the bid bond, the district courts, they always have what's called liaisons with the district courts, and they go around, they collect all these up, and then they take them to New York and transfer them. Are we clear? Any case. So don't think, I'm trying to make this simple so that you understand why we say certain things. Are we clear?
Yes.
Now, I know some of you are already aware of this, but I know because we have a rotation of people that come through here, we don't want to keep talking over your head. And it's not that we're talking over your head. If you don't have certain background, certain things we say may not make sense to you. Are we clear?
Yes.
So if you understand what I'm telling you now, the reason why I'm saying to you, write it down, is because if you absorb what I've just told you, you understand the politics and the economics that's happening in North America and the world, and you also recognize why the nations of the earth are dumping UST bonds now as fast as they can get rid of them. Are we clear? And this is why we warn people. We say, if you have any large sums of notes in the bench, the bank is the bench, try to keep enough moving that take care of your business, because you got to have some kind of order, you know, stability. But however, if you got any large amount there, take it out while you can. And spend it while you can on something that you really, really need. In other words, don't splurge, don't waste. Do it on food, dry goods,
Tools.
sleepers that your family can be in bitter cold. Like those sleepers that you can sleep outside almost in. Get them, get blankets while you can.
Hey, Taj, and don't forget small denomination silver.
Yeah, small denomination silver, yeah. Always get the silver dimes and quarters and stuff like that. Don't get caught up in the bullion thing, because they're doing cheatings now. All the bullions, almost all the bullions are cheated. If you got any bullions, 9 times out of 10, it's titanium dipped. You know, so they're already, meaning that all around the world, they're already knowing what's getting ready to happen, and they've already been putting out or selling people gold that don't exist. If you buy gold certificates, you made a mistake. Anything you buy, if it ain't in your hand, you ain't bought it. You don't have it.
Also, if you get in a situation where you need silver, and you get like a $50 gold piece, and you go to the store and you want to get a 50-pound bag of beans, and they tell you it's $10 silver, $10 gold, they're not going to have any change for you. That's why you want to make sure
you put small denominations.
You know what I mean?
Because it's valuable. All right? And this is why over the years we've always told people, always carry a silver coin in your pocket anyway. It is both honor, it is both integrity, and it's both emergency too. Do you understand? D, what occurred when you went to the sheriff's sale with your silver coin? They threw you out.
Yeah, they threw me out.
Mess up everything.
They said we don't use those in here. We don't use that. We only use this. We don't use that.
Yeah, but you already know better.
Yeah.
Because they're obligated. But the deal of it is what they did, and the reason why you do that is because you get them to admit the fraud. Because it trumps anything that's in there. Anything that's in there. I don't care how many zeros it has on it, it trumps it. Are we clear?
Because it's paper.
No, not because it's paper, because it's not money. You see, yes, it's paper. Yes, it is paper, but it's not money. That's the whole point. If it was a stick, it's not whether or not it's paper. It's not money. See, this is where we got. Let's get off and let's be real. What's happening? We got to stay. What I'm saying is, we want to stay specific. Are we clear?
Yes.
Because when you're not specific, they'll pick you apart.
Yes.
Are we clear?
Yes.
That's the only reason why we're correcting you. Not that what you're saying is wrong. Be specific. If it ain't gold and silver coin, it's not money.
So
Not because it's paper, it's not money.
Right.
will
Are we clear?
Will they trade paper for gold?
Right now, you can get some, if you can. Most likely, let me tell you something right now. They're not selling gold. You go somewhere where they're selling gold, it's probably alloy. We're talking about, if anybody that keeps up with world politics knows that if you go out now looking for gold, more than likely, 9 times out of 10 you're going to get had. Don't mean that you can't get any, but 9 times out of 10 you're going to get had. If you haven't been doing things already, or in the process of already doing things, you're in 50-50 chance of getting had. And then for the most part, as far as the nation states are concerned, so most of your gold outlets ain't really putting out no real gold anyway, because everybody's trying to hoard it, because they already know what's happening is that it's getting ready to pop 300% in that area. You understand? So anybody that got it ain't getting rid of it. Are we clear? And as we speak, the Federal Reserve note is going down as we speak. Not maybe next week we're going a couple of notes on the next. No, as we speak, which means you can go buy some fish today and go buy some tomorrow, and it might be raised $2.
Yes.
2 notes, like that. You know, they're trying to suppress it because they don't want to create panic, but they don't have a choice because right now it's going in a circle. And so they're actually dealing with a small row of musical chairs. Are we clear? This is why they wanted to, this is why they wanted to do that, drop that bomb on South Carolina, to do another 9/11 thing, so that they can cover stuff up, because the Chinese, India, Myanmar, Malaysia, multiple countries are not dealing with that Federal Reserve notes as we speak. They ain't been doing it for a while. They just been covering this stuff up by the Feds buying back the T-bonds that they've been dumping so that it doesn't shock the market. It can't be continued. So they're printing roughly from 6 to 8 billion notes an hour. So you already know it's going to create hyperinflation.
They have a movie, because you had talked about what's supposed to be happening in South Carolina, I think last week, and I had found a movie from 1983 called Special Bulletin, and it was like an atomic bomb. Special Bulletin. It was an atomic bomb that went off in South Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina. Right, what you said, it happened.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they have a movie that just, you know.
Interesting, because it was supposed to happen,
It
but
actually,
they dropped it off. They dropped it off in the ocean.
Right.
Yeah, and so those generals got fired.
Yeah, because they didn't want to detonate.
For not detonating. For not hitting the target.
Oh, they fired
They're firing a
the
lot of
whole.
them.
Go just look up how many generals been
Yes,
fired.
yes.
Over
Yeah.
what, 197?
And officers, yeah.
Yep.
Just look it up. And the deal of it is, and remember Dr. Nyla told us about Karen Hughes? You know, and she was with the World Bank, and she's been spilling the beans. The stuff that she's spilling is more important than what Snowden is spilling. Really. If anybody really understands government. You know, but anyway, let's continue. But my major interest is with us to get competent enough to try to save ourselves while we go through this crash. All right? So gold and silver were such a powerful money during the founding of the United States of America that the founding fathers declared that only gold or silver coins can be money in America. And since gold and silver coinage were heavy and inconvenient for a lot of transactions, they were stored in banks, and claim checks was issued as a money substitute. That's what your greenbacks are. They're claim checks. Those are the original checks. Now people think checks are those books that they get from the bank where they fill them out for the amount. That's not the checks. The greenbacks are the checks. So you can see people's concepts are even wrong. So automatically when they start arguing these issues, they're immediately incompetent. Cultures and language, see? Anyway, pay attention to this. This is very important, so take notes. They were stored in banks, and claim checks were issued as a money substitute, and people traded their coupons as money or currency, quote unquote. Are we clear?
Yes.
Now listen to this very carefully so that you don't continue to make mistakes. Currency is not money. Currency is not money, but a money substitute. What is a money substitute? Counterfeit. You made a mistake. It's a substitute. It's counterfeit. Stop.
Come on, mommy.
So currency is not money, but a money substitute. Redeemable currency must promise to pay a dollar equivalent in gold or silver money. Therefore, you must have access to the original check to get the money. If the instrument you have can't redeem the money, it's not money. Are we clear? And currency is not money. Anything that's moved negotiably in the name of money is not money. Federal Reserve notes, FRNs, make no such promises and are not money, quote unquote. A Federal Reserve note is a debt obligation. So as you accumulate them, you're actually accumulating debt. But the illusion is that you're accumulating wealth. You're accumulating debt. And so, a Federal Reserve note is a debt obligation of the federal United States government and not money. The federal United States government and the U.S. Congress were not and have never been authorized by the Constitution for the United States of America to issue currency of any kind, but only lawful money, gold and silver coin. It is essential that we comprehend the distinction between real money and paper money. Are we clear? Yeah. It is essential that we comprehend the distinction between real money, and paper money substitute. And one cannot get rich by accumulating money substitutes. One can only get deeper in debt, and this has been the trick. Are we clear? So people have been running after the greenbacks, getting poorer. That's why you need more of them to do the same thing. So I remember, like when I was in school, as soon as I got out of school, I bought a house in Parkside, so-called bought a house, I guess that's what you call it. Anyway, so I was 19, I had a Chrysler Imperial LeBaron, and I had a Chrysler 300 SJ. And both of those are very expensive cars. Now my Imperial was paid for, and that's the bigger one. And my Chrysler SJ I didn't finish paying for that. My sister crashed it. But now those were two very expensive cars. And the insurance man used to come to my house and ask me where my mother was. I used to live. Your mom home? And I had these big cars up there, a nice house, right? I had imported lamps from Germany with crystal on it. I had gold leaf pictures on the wall. Small frames cost like $400 a piece. I bought most of my furniture at Van Stocker. But my father, I was a barber too. My father and my family were barbers. And I had multiple skills, so I did a lot of stuff. So, and then a lot of my furniture was custom stuff. Almost all my furniture was custom. and it's a lot of, very nice stuff. But I remember, now my Chrysler Imperial LeBaron had more features in it than the Cadillac Fleetwood, and it actually cost more than Fleetwood. At that time, the Chrysler LeBaron cost like $7,000. You hear me?
Wow.
The Cadillac Fleetwood cost $65 or something like that. Now, that same car right now costs you about $80,000. About $80,000 for the, it wouldn't be a Fleetwood, it would be, the highest Cadillac they have. And the Chrysler 300 is not as expensive as it was, but it's about 50 now, something like that. But that shows you the jump that people don't pay attention to. Now I had the marble imported crystal lamps with the lead crystal, and I bought them at Van Skyver. Now at that time they cost around $4 something. One was like a stand, and then one was like a low one. They was matched anyway. Together they cost just short of $1,000. But them same lamps right now cost me about $2,000 a piece or maybe more. And those frames to my art collection I wouldn't even be able to afford them now. But then, I did a lot of stuff, but I couldn't afford them now. If I had that stuff right now, I could auction and get more finance for it than it paid for. That Chrysler SJ, if I had that right now, that's worth $125,000 right now. That's worth more than the Imperial. The Imperial, I could get a good knock for that now, but the Chrysler SJ, that 300, Chrysler 300 with Hemi engine in it, you get you put that on Barracks right now, and you get from 125,000 to almost 200,000 bidding on it. And we couldn't even touch that stuff now. But people don't recognize inflation because you live a few generations and time passes real quick and you forget that stuff. What I remember, like when I used to come home, when we used to go to the Parkside Den in Camden, then after 4 they had gates, they closed the gates. If you wasn't in the community, you couldn't get in there. But anyway, the deal of it is this is going to happen again. It's going to happen big time. This one's going to be worse than the other one. Now, the problem that they're having right now is the Dragon family, which is a Chinese family. A lot of the gold that the Europeans have been using to back their system for the last 100 years actually belong to the Dragon family. And they've been stealing their gold. And this is also why Germany and a lot of the other nation states are asking for their gold back. And some of the gold that they gave them, and they said they can't. They said, 7 years. And so they just invaded Mali in Africa to take over their gold mines to try to satisfy this claim with Germany. And then some of the gold that they've been passing around, they did tests on them and they found out that they're dipped, they're tungsten, and they're dipped in gold. And so this is what Karen was talking about, is that what you have right now is a currency war going on. Now, the reason why you have the IMF and the International Monetary Fund is actually to stop wars for relatives that will come or will develop out of currency wars. And that's what that was really set up for. And so the real deal of it is now Germany being one of the U.S. corporations' #1 allies, they came for their gold and they told them to go home. Told them there ain't no room to see. And so that's an act of war. So things are going on in the political realm that most of our people being busy worried about a JOB don't know is this stuff's getting ready to hit the doo-doo that went through the van. Polka dot walls?
What's that smell?
Doo-doo went through the van. And so this is why, we've been telling people for years to nationalize, because I already know that one of the things that they want to do is kill the creditor off. And keep in mind, the only creditor can be those who are heirs to the estate. That's why they don't talk none of this stuff. They don't really tell Moors really what Noble Drew Ali did. Even a lot of people who know misrepresent what's really going on. Because what Noble Drawley did is actually a logical and divine action of a countermeasure to the Roman Inquisition that's been ruling the planet for really almost 1,000 years now. The problems on the planet. Do you understand? And so most of the time when people look at Noble Drawley, they get caught in this worshipful thing or, different belief type attitude in this wrong concept. As these instruments that they have out there begin to collapse, which they will, they're always creating new venues in order to cover up the last fraud. Well, consider this. For those who listen to what Karen Hudis has exposed, by the U.S. corporation via their bookkeepers, the IRS and the Federal Reserve, having distorted and have been stealing other nations' gold, etc., what is happening is that they're dumping all the U.S. notes. And so all the finances that's being circulated is not really being circulated so much around the world. It's actually going like a revolving door right through the Federal Reserve, and they're buying all the bonds so that people don't see what's happening. Are we clear? And so the deal of it is that they're not going to have enough what you would call liquidity on any front to really continue to fund their armies. And the nations aren't loaning them anything anymore to fund their armies. Are we clear? That's the only reason why that war between Syria and Israel did not start in October. And this is also why they were going to drop that bomb on South Carolina in order to do another 9/11. All right? But that didn't work, and so what they did, they poisoned the water in the Virginia area. Yes, now people can't take a bath, can't drink it, and something like that. And so any other stupid stuff that occurs, you already know where it's really, really coming from. And they can't cover this up right now anymore. And the world already knows that they took them buildings down in New York. The world knows that no matter what they be telling you, the world knows that they took them buildings down.
Cover up.
A cover up, yes. But they took the gold out before they did.
They took the gold out. Yes, they did.
Yeah, and so, and then don't look at it, Obama so much, because remember Obama is only a figurehead. And he's been trying the best he can with his limitations, trying not to get shot, to send signals to the people for things for them that they need to be paying attention to. Anyway, so it is essential that we comprehend the distinction between real money and paper money substitute. One cannot get rich by accumulating money substitutes. One can only get deeper in debt. And we the people no longer have any money. Are we clear? Yes. You don't have any money, so you're not arguing whether it's real money or not. You don't have any money. You ain't had no money, so don't even be talking about it. So don't be talking about, I ain't had no peanut butter sandwiches. They don't like peanut butter sandwiches to me anyway. Like cheese twist or something. Anyway, most Americans have not been paid any money for a very long time, perhaps not in their entire life.
That's right.
You see? And see, so any of you, the young ones in New York never even had no money. Talking about, I got paid. No, you ain't. I got a house. No, you don't. Two at least? No, you ain't got that either. $1? Nope, ain't got that either. Ain't never paid. You see, so they owe you still, you see. Now do you comprehend why you feel broke? You don't feel broke, you are broke. That ain't a feeling. Because if it was like that, I'll just feel good. And you never filled up with this. Well, anyway, now do you know why you feel broke? Now do you understand why you are bankrupt along with the rest of the country? But keep in mind, this is congressional records that I'm reading from. Federal Reserve notes are unsigned checks written on a closed account. Are we clear? They're unsigned checks written on a closed account. Federal Reserve notes are an inflatable paper system designed to create debt through inflation, which is devaluation of currency. Whenever there is an increase of the supply of a money substitute in the economy without a corresponding increase in the gold and silver backing, inflation occurs. Inflation is an invisible form of taxation that irresponsible governments inflict on their citizens. And the Federal Reserve Bank, who controls the supply and movement of Federal Reserve notes, has everybody fooled. And they have access to an unlimited supply of Federal Reserve notes, paying only for the printing costs of what they need. Federal Reserve notes are nothing more than promissory notes for U.S. Treasury securities, quote-unquote T-bills, a promise to pay the debt to the Federal Reserve Bank. And so this is what they use the marriage certificates for and the birth certificates, and what they do, they calculate how much the slave can make in a lifetime or generate in a lifetime, and then they project that onto the bookkeeping of the Federal Reserve notes. That's what they are, bookkeeping entries. Are we clear? So you got to look at them correctly so that your head always stays straight, because we get busy and keep thinking money and stop thinking like that. Therefore, bookkeeping entries they're a paper system for measuring energy inputs and outputs in society, just like you look at a battery draining and a meter. Are we clear?
Yes.
And the IRS are the bookkeepers for the U.S. corporation, which is the army arm for the popes of Rome. And the banking arm is Britain. Are we clear? That's how that works. Are we clear?
Yes.
So keep it in mind what you're doing. So when you do the 1080, that 1040 stuff, it goes to the Queen of England. Nothing goes to your children, nothing goes to school, nothing goes to streets. This is why the country is being slow drained. This is why people are working harder. 2 or 3 people in the family got to work to keep a house together. And even then it ain't enough.
Yeah.
You know, 2 weeks you're threatened with being on the curb with the trash you threw out last week.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah. That's what that's coming from. All right?
Yes.
So, there's a fundamental difference between, and this is very important, pay attention to this paragraph. There is a fundamental difference between, quote unquote, paying and discharging a debt. So you want to keep that in mind. Are we clear?
Yes.
All right, paying, discharging. Are we clear?
What's the difference?
We're going to talk about that. Now keep in mind, we're reading from congressional records, because we're going to talk about this. There's a fundamental difference between paying, quote unquote, and discharging a debt. To pay a debt, you must pay with the value or substance, i.e. gold, silver, barter, or commodity. So write that down. Gold, silver, barter, or commodity. Are we clear? It must be substantive. Are we clear? With Federal Reserve notes, you can only discharge a debt. Are we clear? With Federal Reserve notes, you can only discharge a debt. Why? Why?
No money.
No, see, there you go again.
I'm sorry.
No, listen to yourself. This is why I qualified what I said earlier, because I need for you to keep your head clean. With Federal Reserve notes, you can only discharge a debt, and you said because there is no money. Not that that's a correct statement, but I want you to refine it better.
Because it's not backed by gold, silver.
All right, now, well, that's true. That's a fact by default. But I'm going to read it again. I want you to pay attention to what's being said here, because I want you to look at it differently. Listen, I'm not saying that you're wrong.
No.
All right? I want you to think harder. All right? Listen. There's a fundamental difference between paying, quote unquote, and discharging a debt. Right? To pay a debt, you must pay with value or substance, i.e. gold, silver, barter, or commodity. With Federal Reserve notes, you can only discharge a debt. And so the answer is not just because there is no money, it's because it's what it's telling you that when you go and you give people your Federal Reserve notes thinking that you paid the debt, you haven't paid the debt, it's just leaned against your credit. No different than if you gave them nothing. They've taken it as a gift. And then they discharge the instrument. That's the answer I was looking for. It's not saying that, but if you analyze, that's why I was breaking it down, because if you analyze the logistical analysis of the statements that are made, you see different. Because people are so in their mind keep thinking money, 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 and they're not looking that you're dealing with movements of bookkeeping on resources. And so you immediately run to the money issue, and it's not what's being presented to you. It's presenting to you that the concept that when you're giving them FRNs, you understand? Even though you know you're not paying it, but you're not thinking in your mind is that it's still leaned against you as a credit, a void credit. And so two people are at a counter. One gives them Federal Reserve notes, one didn't give them Federal Reserve notes, so the one that gave them the Federal Reserve notes is accused of not paying their bills. And the one who gave them Federal Reserve notes is said to pay their bills. But on the record, neither one of them paid. Are we clear?
Yes.
Do you see where the fraud, you see where these corporations are getting wealthy with the people's energy output?
Yes, yes. Yes.
Because even after being told that the Federal Reserves are not money, you still go give them Federal Reserve notes with the concept that you're satisfying the debt.
Yes.
And the record will show that you haven't. You're still going into debt and you still owe for even using it. Because there's an interest on even using it. You have to give them some energy percentage for generating it, and then you got to give them another energy percentage for even spending it, which you're really spending, but you're not really spending just for using it. In other words, you're renting it. Even as you're handling it, you're renting it. And so when you come to the desk or to the institution and you give them some greenbacks, and the guy standing next to you give them nothing, he's been accused of not paying his bills, and you're saying that you paid your bills and you walk away satisfied, they're grinning at both of you because they turn back around, and on your records, neither one of you paid. And they take the one that gave you the greenbacks, that's a gift. Are we clear?
Yes, sir.
And it goes against credit, which is nothing. Are we clear? And so this is I want you to kind of look at how they're looking at you, not how you're looking at them. And that part has to be in your head. Now, this is why you ask for the 1099 OID, because you did an energy transfer.
Yeah.
And when you did an energy transfer, the bigger vampire wants it reported, because that's their blood. They just drained energy from you. You're a battery. All right, so we ain't talking money, are we?
No, we're talking energy.
And that's what this is for. That lets them know how much energy is being drained from their slaves.
Yes, yes.
Part of your mental, like Drew Ali said, I came to redeem you from mental slavery, which you have right now.
Yes.
part of when I stopped you and went back over this is what I'm trying to show you, the mental servitude. The mental, you're not wrong in what you said, but it's really you're thinking shallow. We'll peel the onion back a little bit more. That's what I'm trying to say to you. Islam.
But even,
Loud enough so you don't like.
well, even, I'm right here, but even in the Black's Law Dictionary, pay, verb, to discharge a debt, so they're using connotation here, you know?
Yes.
Then it goes to deliver to a creditor the value of a debt, either in money or in goods for his acceptance.
So now, isn't that commodity? Isn't that barter or commodity?
Yes, substance.
Are FINs barter or commodity?
No.
No, because they are worthless, aren't they?
Yes.
Not only that, they are debt because they carry with them debt, because even the handling of them requires an output that is extra. You know, just like when something is extrajudicial, something that has to be dealt with later. This is what your so-called income tax is in the Vernal Equinox for the Queen, or what you call that April the 15th thing. That's the energy output to the Queen, and then they take 40%, and then 60% goes to the Vatican.
Wow.
Are we clear? So write that down. I think that's why they call it 1040. But anyway,
Wow.
that's true. You know what I mean? And so people are in the idea that when they collect the Federal Reserve notes, that that's theirs and that they're paid. They weren't paid. They hold it in their pocket. They are charged for going to get it, and they're charged for spending it. This is why you go backwards. It's just a slow walk. And the inflation is multiple tax because it's all bookkeeping. That's why they can give you a bunch of them, and they say, I thought I had $5. Well, no, you don't have $5. You have a piece of paper that had 5 ones on it. But you're thinking weights and measures, what money is, but it has no value. You see, so the Federal Reserve note is actually about 3 cents. You see? And so, actually, when you think about, right, as an example, say close to 80,000, between 80 and 100,000 notes today would be my card up was 7,000, roughly around 7,000 in 66. You see? 66, yeah, 66, 67. See the point? And how many percentage is that? That's like 800%, 900%, 1,000%. And the quality is less now. You know, I remember that car, I could change my radio from the steering wheel, from the floor, from the button, from the handle, from the steering wheel, from the floor next to them, where they had the high beams. I could change my radio from the floor, from the steering wheel, or from the panel. It had big tufted seats, big headrests in it. It had earphones for 2 people in the back. They could have earphones that was in the shelf in the back, separate. If I bought something like that, I'd feel rolls. So now, anyway.
So what?
We're talking about inflation that people don't pay attention to. In other words, the fiat buys less, and that's how they rob you. That's what the inflation is. They raise the tax by raising the price, but they give you the same numbers, and you actually have more numbers now and less value. You know, like most of us throw away finance in one day that we would generate in 1 week years ago. And we're getting more then than we can now, take care of your family and everybody not to work.
Yep.
Excuse me, brother.
You understand? Really? Because I remember we'd go to the grocery store with one of the cars and stuff the trunk and spent about 30 or 40 notes. I mean, stuff the trunk. Can't do that in the bag.
That's too bad.
And you don't think about it, except those who are older, you know what I mean? But the youth, like y'all that don't even cross your mind. Because you didn't live it. You know what I mean? You didn't have a chance to live it. But those who, most of the elders here, I mean, we usually recognize that. We don't think about it because you're busy living. But when you think about it, that's wicked. Really wicked. It's not about time. RockandRodBayPublications.com. My deal. My deal. It's not. So anyway, in the middle of it, so you cannot pay a debt with a debt currency. Are we look? You cannot pay a debt with a debt currency system. Are we clear? Yes. Now, keep that in mind. Now, we're going to do Sandra because I've been arguing with you for years. Page 2. Yeah. All right. Now, this is because we're building concept, right? Yeah. Concepts, all right? All right. You cannot pay a debt with a debt currency system. So this is back where we're using the demonstration. So when you go give them Federal Reserve notes, you're under the concept that you pay the debt and the debt is not paid. It's going against you as credit. And then you still owe for having used it. Then they list you as a corpse. That's the 14th Amendment, the corpse. And that's where corporation comes from, right? And then as a corpse, they're claiming your estate, and this is where the why all that you possess is always probated. So the state gets their piece again. This is why our families never develop or build what is called old money. That's a loose term. Because they're never able to accumulate. Are we clear? Yes. But yet they're moving all these instruments that they think is money. And what they're doing is sharecropping their labor. And it's done in such a way that it doesn't dawn on them. And this is why I'm saying, think. And so when they pass on the Federal Reserve notes to any of these institutions, they tell you you paid, and what they've done is taken that as a dedonis, the same way they take mortgage payments. What they call them mortgage payments. Are we clear? Yes. Clear. As a gift, and then it goes against either the CUSIC number, Social Security number, birth certificate, whatever instruments they may use, and they're all simply this one instrument anyway. Are we clear? And they're all mortgages. The contract is dead and you're the pledge. That's why they always sell the mortgages and within 72 hours and then convert it into a promissory note. Because all the promissory notes. And you're the pledge. So mortgage means dead pledge. You're the pledge. Contract is dead, it's destroyed. All right? Yes. So keep this in mind. So since they're transferring energy, the IRS is the bookkeepers for the United States Corporation Army, which belongs to the Jesuits. Are we clear? Yes. Clear. Neither one of them are the government. Like when people say, well, the IRS is not a branch of the government, the U.S. democracy is not government either. That's right. You see how we keep getting blinded by this stuff? Yeah. Then all their franchises are what? Part of that corporation too. And so when you're talking to their franchises, you're talking to them, to the U.S. corporation at the same time. So keep in mind, let's go back to the beginning, right? When it says here, it is essential, it is an established fact that the United States federal government has been dissolved. So it's been dissolved, then who do you think you're so-called transferring your energy to? In the name of taxes or payments about anything. Because a bankrupt entity cannot command any payment of anything. It has no business even doing business on any level. Period. Now in the law of bankruptcy, when they make commands of so-called payments, they have what? Abridged the bankruptcy process. That's a felony. That's like somebody closing the store and they open up the store at 2 o'clock in the morning and start selling things. When they're closed. Because they don't have any assets, and so they're printing artificial assets and so-called selling them, and then claiming the people are in debt. Are we clear? This is why it was important for them to maintain their army in order to keep on going around robbing countries. This is why they killed Gaddafi, because Gaddafi was reestablishing gold-backed money for the African states. Are we clear?
Clear.
So, as we recognize what they're doing, we recognize what this really is. That's why I put that up there first. Are we clear? So, whenever you're talking about paying implies that you've given them gold or silver coin, some absolute substance or substance of value, equally accepted and contracted, verifiable, and if you use the Federal Reserve notes, you've just discharged. So if you discharged, then that means there's movements. This is essentially what you would call a disguised voucher for movement of goods. Therefore, that movement of goods should be reported. That's what this is for.
Okay.
Are we clear? Now, to the people, they're given the idea, most of them aren't even told that this takes place. They don't even know that this is taking place every time they move something. They're told this for deception purposes, so that they can give their energy to the receivers, giving them Federal Reserve, and they walking back out thinking they paid, and the person next door that ain't got a JOB ain't paid that bill. I pay all my bills. All that stuff. No, you ain't paid nothing. You know what you did? Gave them a gift.
Wow.
Right?
Yep.
And what they do, they turn around and take that statement of account, which they told you was a bill, and they take it to the DTC, and then they go redeem the coupon. When it's exactly it's tax absconding. So they get compensated with the energy account against your estate, and then what you just gave them as a gift, they got that too. See why they get wealthy? They get wealthy with the resources, but the fiat is only a cover. That's why you see them Europeans lighting cigars with 100 notes, and you be saying, "Hey, man," because they're really already, they ain't no different to them than the empty Hershey wrapper. They just go through the motion to make you think it has value. Because it's not money, never really was. But they got to go through like they're really trying to get it to keep trying to get it. But what you're really doing is sharecropping. What there are is bookkeeping your sharecropping. And every time you get one of those instruments in the mail, they're actually statements of account. They're statements against movements of the account on the estate. This is why, again, what you all know, why they write the trust in, or the transmitting utility in all capital letters. Right? And then, you know, you all know this part. And people think it's them, and they act as if it's them.
Yeah.
Rather than claim it, because because it's an estate. Just like if they give you a deed, claim the deed and then convert it into your estate. But then you got to be in your proper person to have standing to even do that. This is also why they took the names and nationalities from the people, so that any transaction that you make in their name automatically belongs to the estate. You see? Wards of the state thing.
Is that the debtor thing or the debtor?
Yeah, the debtor creditor thing. What they've done is reverse it.
Okay.
See, what's happening is we're under occupation. They have listed us as debtors to them as if they own the land and the resources. Are we clear? And then they create the fictional story of the so-called black diaspora. Like they brought us from someplace else when you're actually aboriginal to the land. So all of these fictions are to remove you from the estate. Are we clear? And then to remove you mentally, they give the people counterfeit religion, which is called dogmata. So the masses get dogmata. The priesthood maintains religion. This is what you call masonry, or the secret societies. They preserve true religion for the priesthood, and the masses get dogmata. So they think they get money, they getting dogmata, right? I mean, they're getting fiat. That's what the fiat is. Faith, or the blind faith, is the dogmata. Then you have color of law, distinguished from jurisprudence. And so that trinity of operations is how this monster tree works.
Can you run that back when you said the color of law is distinguished between jurisprudence?
All right.
You're saying for
knowledge
of law?
Yeah, but listen. No, listen. What you're not going to be doing, and this is what you're going to break already. Don't assume stuff. Don't start throwing, I feel as though, it sounds, what this really means, don't do the Ebonic stuff.
Okay.
All right? Read colored, this is law book, right? Read colored and then read jurisprudence. And keep in mind, read jurisprudence, the principle, and then read colored. And so this is also why we always suggest strongly that anyone who's studying, make sure that you have your law books. Invest in yourself. So that, because the language changes when the knowledge changes. And keep in mind that culture's in the language. And one of the weak things amongst us as a people is that from an emotional perspective of us stepping outside of the false jurisdiction that the European has created, we start claiming Islam, Judaism, we're going back to the creeds of our forefathers, getting Afrocentric, getting Ebonically correct and all this stuff, and thinking that we're stepping out the jurisdiction. Well, no, not really. Because most of what the masses are getting is BS Dior. You understand? And then most of the leaders are compromised, and they limit what they say. Are we clear? All right, can you come up for a minute?
He's going to read it, right?
You know, you got them skates on, girl. All right. Turn on the music, y'all. Roll. Here's what you want. Now,
That's right. Jurisprudence.
pay attention to this.
The philosophy of law, or the science which treats of the principles of positive law and legal relations.
Now, read that again.
Jurisprudence. The philosophy of law, or the science which treats of the principles of positive law and legal relations.
Now, when people are talking law, they're looking at generally as the superior title. And as you see, the title of law comes under jurisprudence. You see? So it's important for us to be cognizant of that.
I just wanted to share a maxim on jurisprudence. It says, jurisprudence is the knowledge of things divine and human. Islam, it's a maxim.
You hear that, y'all? Come on for just a minute.
I just wanted to share that. That was it.
Stay on up here.
Because one girl Islam, family.
I didn't want to take over.
No,
I just wanted to
no,
share.
we're working, we're trying to fix stuff.
Right, yeah.
And we don't want, see, a lot of times, and this is another reason why a lot of times we'll present things casually, because sometimes when you're too formal, it's stale, and you really don't get the jewels. And just like a lot of times when you're having casual conversation, that's when a lot of times after meetings is when the good stuff comes out. Or in sideline conversations. Therefore, get in camera.
I just wanted to add on while we was on the subject of jurisprudence, and I'm glad that I could, that it is a maxim that says jurisprudence is the science of things divine and human, the science of the just and unjust. And that was referenced in the Cuvier's, and I just felt it imperative to share with the family while we was on that subject.
Yes, and that's much appreciated, because those little nuances, and keep in mind, these are principles. When you're talking maxims, you're talking about the fundamentals of principles of law that no one can dispute. Are we clear?
And if you look up due process of law, Salam, if you look up due process of law, it makes specific mentions to how maxims are part of due process, maxims. So I wanted to share that. Salam.
Thank you, brother. Now we call it. Now, so as you can see, the value of you, me, us, collectively, knowing what we're talking about, and not just using what we call sometimes casual language or assuming things mean one thing and they don't necessarily mean what you think they mean. In law, that's what occurs. Because keep in mind, for the masses are, for the most part, controlled by connotative linguistics.
Yes, yes.
By design. And so, as you're beginning to study nationality, it is necessary for you to get closer and embrace kind of denotative linguistics, or the etymon of language. And it's part of your teaching process, because nationality is a consciousness. National principles are maxims, and they're a consciousness, not just paper. And also, when you're dealing with these people, they can tell by your language whether you're connected to what you say. And keep in mind, it is your capacity to connect back, both through your vibration, your energy, to the ancient traditions and customs of your ancient mothers and fathers. And that's what brings about the power of what is called the common law, and your capacity to use it. This is why also a lot of times when some of these European sovereignty groups, because they've been exposed to a lot more information than we have, because we've been deliberately miseducated, and as they start messing up the systems, the Magi will say to them, you can't use the Constitution as a defense because you're not a party to it. You need to know what they're really saying. Because if you're talking the Constitution, you're talking that republic. They've been benefiting from this democracy order that they've been riding from us with. So you cannot be in, you have no allegiance to it, which means, and if you're talking the Constitution, you're also talking the treaty. And that ain't in your spirit or your conversation. So that's what? What is that? It's clandestine. And it's the same concept that is presented to a lot of brothers and sisters that go into secret orders, masonry and stuff like that, put on the fez and then try to act like they don't know who the Moors are. They're clandestine. Or they get all that divine knowledge and information, and then they come out still calling themselves black. That's clandestine. Get the point? Same principle.
Color.
Color.
You want colored or color?
Color. You can read color and then colored.
Okay. Color, an appearance, semblance, or simulacrum, as distinguished from that which is real.
Read it again. So this is color. So we're people of color, like they're getting deep and Afrocentric, like they're doing our people of paper. And this is what they just said. That's right. Go ahead.
An appearance, semblance, or simulacrum, as distinguished from that which is real.
So what did they just tell the world? We ain't real people. So do fake people, does fake plants need water? No. Do fake people need human rights? No. So they can have some leaders marching around to agree to be people of color, and you can't read, you don't know they just sold you out, do you? So they don't even recognize overseers. You see? And this is why they say often, don't worry about their children. They'll never compete because they can't read. And the ones who can,